There comes a moment in your life when you stop being available to everything and everyone that drains your spirit. You don't announce it, you don't explain it. You simply rise into a version of yourself that no longer entertains what is beneath your growth. Becoming unreachable is not about arrogance, it is about evolution. It is the quiet shift where your energy no longer bends for chaos, where your heart no longer negotiates with confusion, where your mind no longer allows access to whoever knocks. When you become unreachable, you stop responding from old wounds. You stop accepting half-hearted conversations, inconsistent connections, and emotional turbulence disguised as passion. Your silence becomes your shield. Your distance becomes your clarity. Your peace becomes your new language. People who once pulled you into their storms will suddenly find they have no power over you. They can no longer touch you emotionally because you've risen above the vibration they operate in. This transformation is not coldness, it is alignment. You begin to choose yourself without guilt. You prioritize your inner world over outer noise. You withdraw from places where your worth was questioned and move toward spaces where your presence feels honored. And in that sacred shift, something remarkable happens. You attract people, opportunities, and experiences that match your higher frequency. Your unreachability does not isolate you, it liberates you. It frees you from repeating cycles, old patterns, and emotional debts that were never yours to pay. It teaches you that your energy is your most valuable currency, and not everyone deserves access to it. When you rise to this place, those who were meant to journey with you will rise as well. Those who were never aligned fall away effortlessly. And eventually you realize something profound. Becoming unreachable was never about shutting the world out. It was about creating space for the right world to reach you. The world meant for your growth, your peace, your evolution, and your becoming. Becoming unreachable is a sign of inner evolution, not arrogance. It reflects the moment when your spirit rises beyond what once held you down. You stop chasing the validation you used to fight for because you finally understand your value without needing external confirmation. Your absence in certain places is not an act of superiority. It is an act of self-preservation. You no longer entertain conversations that drain your emotional reserves or relationships that thrive on inconsistency. The world may misinterpret your silence as pride, but internally it is a return to self, an alignment with a deeper truth that you ignored for too long. You begin to understand that peace is not merely a feeling, it is a decision, one that requires walking away from anything that disrupts your inner balance. This stage of unreachability emerges when you've experienced enough emotional noise to recognize the cost of being too accessible. You start valuing the spaces where your presence feels respected rather than tolerated. You become more selective with your energy, not because you believe others are unworthy, but because you know your own worth. You realize that not every invitation deserves your acceptance, not every message requires your reply, and not every person has earned the right to access your emotional world. It becomes clear that availability without discernment leads to exhaustion, and emotional generosity without boundaries leads to depletion. So you retreat, not as an escape, but as a reset. In this evolution, you begin to trust silence more than forced conversation. You trust distance more than chaotic closeness. You no longer feel compelled to explain your choices or justify your withdrawal. The people aligned with your growth understand your silence. Those who don't were never meant to stay. As you rise, you naturally detach from environments that no longer mirror who you are becoming. You lose interest in superficial connections because they can't nourish your inner world. Your attention shifts toward authenticity, depth, and resonance. You start honoring your intuition, listening to your body, and respecting your emotional needs. This transformation marks a return to yourself, a reclaiming of your time, your silence, and your inner landscape. Becoming unreachable is simply the outward expression of an internal awakening, the natural result of finally choosing yourself over noise, chaos, and emotional imbalance. It is a boundary born not from ego but from growth, clarity, and self-respect. Your emotional boundaries strengthen when you finally recognize that your well-being is not something to be negotiated or compromised. You begin to understand that not everyone deserves access to the most tender parts of you, and not every connection is meant to be held onto. Instead of giving your energy away freely, you start protecting your emotional space like something sacred. You stop allowing others to dictate how you feel, or to manipulate your reactions. You notice when someone is crossing a line, and instead of brushing it aside or trying to justify their behavior, you address it or walk away. This shift shows that you are no longer driven by the fear of disappointing others. You are guided by the need to honor yourself. As your boundaries strengthen, you stop responding from old wounds. You no longer chase closeness just to avoid feeling abandoned, nor do you tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. You recognize the difference between love and attachment, between loyalty and self-sacrifice. You notice how your body reacts when something isn't right, how your spirit tightens, how your energy drops, how your intuition whispers, and you trust those signals instead of ignoring them. You give yourself permission to say no without guilt, and you learn that saying no is not an act of rejection but an act of self-respect. Your boundaries become the filter that separates what nourishes you from what depletes you. You become more mindful of who you allow into your inner world. You surround yourself with people who communicate with clarity, who respect your space, who listen instead of dismiss, who connect instead of consume. You stop allowing chaos to disguise itself as passion or unpredictability to pass as depth. You seek relationships that feel steady, uplifting, and emotionally safe. This shift does not make you cold. It makes you conscious. You are no longer accessible to people who treat your emotions casually, and you no longer feel obligated to explain why. As your emotional boundaries grow stronger, you begin to understand your value on a deeper level. You realize that protecting your energy is not selfish, it's essential. You learn that peace is not found in the absence of conflict, but in the presence of boundaries that honor your emotional truth. You move with intention, speak with clarity, and choose connections that align with your inner growth. In doing so, you create a life where your emotions are acknowledged, your needs are respected, and your soul has the freedom to breathe. You lose interest in inconsistent or draining connections when you finally understand the true cost of giving your energy to people who only show up halfway. There comes a point when the highs and lows, the mixed signals, the emotional guessing games no longer feel exciting. They feel exhausting. You stop romanticizing inconsistency and start recognizing it as a reflection of someone's emotional unavailability, not your worth. You no longer cling to the hope that they will change because you see that your peace is far too valuable to gamble on someone's potential. Instead of waiting for clarity, you choose clarity. Instead of chasing, you release. You begin to gravitate toward connections that feel steady, predictable in a healthy way, and emotionally nourishing. Your spirit grows tired of shallow interactions and starts craving depth, truth, and stability. This shift happens quietly. You don't announce it. You simply stop responding with the same enthusiasm. You stop overextending yourself to keep connections alive that would die without your effort. You stop forcing conversations, carrying relationships on your back, or pretending you're okay with crumbs. Your intuition grows louder, guiding you away from people who drain your spirit and toward those who replenish it. You start noticing how your body reacts around certain individuals, how some leave you anxious, confused, or depleted, while others bring a sense of calm and grounding. You begin trusting that emotional consistency is not too much to ask for. It is the bare minimum required for a healthy connection. As you evolve, your standards rise, not out of bitterness but out of clarity. You no longer tolerate unpredictability disguised as passion or unreliable behavior masked as busyness. You lose interest in relationships that rely on your forgiveness but never your fulfillment. You become aware of the patterns that once hooked you, the chase, the drama, the waiting, the disappointment. And instead of falling into them again, you walk away. You choose peace over chaos, truth over confusion, and alignment over attachment. Through this process, you begin to understand that losing interest is not a loss. It's liberation. It's the moment you choose yourself over emotional inconsistency. The more you withdraw from draining connections, the more space you create for people who genuinely value your presence. You attract those who show up fully, consistently, and with intention. And in that shift, you reclaim your energy, your time, and your emotional power. Your silence becomes a form of self-protection and self-mastery when you finally realize that not every emotion requires expression, not every conflict deserves your energy, and not every person has earned the privilege of hearing your truth. Silence stops being a reaction and becomes a choice, a conscious decision to preserve your inner world rather than constantly defending it. You begin to understand that peace is not found in explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Instead, peace is found in holding your composure, in keeping your energy intact, and in refusing to engage with anything that pulls you back into old patterns. Silence becomes your shield, not because you fear confrontation, but because you value your emotional balance more than the temporary satisfaction of proving a point. As you grow, you learn that silence carries a power words often can't match. It creates space between stimulus and response, a space where clarity forms. You no longer react impulsively to provocation, manipulation, or emotional chaos. You pause, observe, and decide from a place of stability rather than insecurity. That pause is your mastery. That stillness is your strength. Silence becomes your way of choosing yourself, your peace, and your emotional maturity. It allows you to hear your intuition more clearly, to recognize patterns without getting lost in them, and to maintain control over your inner landscape regardless of external noise. Your silence also exposes the intentions of others. When you stop explaining, people reveal who they truly are. Those who care will seek to understand you. Those who only wanted to take advantage of your openness will fall away. Silence becomes a filter, separating the genuine from the superficial, the aligned from the draining. You stop feeling the need to justify your boundaries or soften your truths for the comfort of others. Your stillness speaks for you. It communicates strength, self-respect, and emotional discipline. With time, you discover that silence is not emptiness, it is protection. It is the space where you reconnect with yourself, regain your energy, and recalibrate your heart. It keeps you from engaging in battles that no longer matter and from feeding situations that don't deserve your attention. Your silence becomes a home you return to when the world feels loud, chaotic, or demanding. It becomes a sanctuary where you reclaim your power and reinforce your peace. And in that sacred quiet, you realize you are no longer controlled by external forces. You are guided by your own inner mastery. You attract people and opportunities that match your higher vibration when you finally rise into a version of yourself that no longer settles for what once felt familiar but unfulfilling. As your energy shifts, your standards shift. You start valuing peace more than attention, depth more than entertainment, consistency more than excitement. This inner realignment naturally filters your world. People who resonate with chaos, drama, or emotional instability no longer feel magnetic to you. They feel heavy. Without forcing anything, you begin moving toward environments, conversations, and relationships that nourish your spirit instead of draining it. Your higher vibration becomes a signal, a silent invitation to those who operate on the same frequency. Suddenly, you find yourself connecting with individuals who understand your boundaries, respect your journey, and communicate with honesty and clarity. This shift is not magic, it's emotional alignment. When you stop chasing, you stop attracting situations built on imbalance. When you release the need to prove your worth, you naturally gravitate toward opportunities that recognize it. When you break old patterns, you step into spaces that reflect your growth instead of your wounds. Your vibration rises each time you choose healing over repetition, truth over illusion, and authenticity over pretense. And the higher you go, the more the world around you rearranges to match your new frequency. Doors open, ideas flow, people appear at the right moment, not because of luck, but because your inner environment is finally aligned with what you've been seeking. You begin meeting individuals who mirror the qualities you've cultivated within yourself: patience, emotional intelligence, compassion, ambition, and clarity. These connections feel effortless, grounding, and uplifting. You no longer have to beg for reciprocity or chase understanding. The right people simply understand. The right opportunities simply align. You attract work that reflects your purpose, relationships that honor your heart, and experiences that contribute to your evolution. Everything starts to feel synchronistic, as though life is responding directly to your inner transformation. As your vibration heightens, you also learn to release what no longer fits. You outgrow environments that were comfortable but limiting. You detach from relationships that cannot evolve with you. This is not loss. It is alignment. The more you elevate, the more you realize that your energy is a magnet. It pulls toward you what matches your truth and repels what contradicts it. When you operate from this higher vibration, life begins to unfold with greater harmony. Opportunities find you. People who resonate with your soul gravitate toward you, and your path opens in ways you once thought impossible, simply because you chose to rise. Becoming unreachable creates space for your destined path to find you, because it marks the moment you stop allowing distractions, emotional noise, and misaligned connections to occupy the places meant for your purpose. When you detach from what no longer resonates, you create an opening, an energetic clearing where clarity can finally enter. The dreams, opportunities, and relationships that were meant for you have always been orbiting your life, but they needed room to land. When you step back from environments that drain you, you reclaim your power and redirect your attention to what genuinely matters. Your unreachability is not withdrawal from life, it is a return to alignment. It is a quiet declaration that you will no longer be available for anything that pulls you away from your growth, your peace, and your authenticity. As you retreat from the noise, you become more attuned to your intuition. You begin hearing the whispers that were once drowned out by chaos, the insights that guide your decisions, the inner nudges that lead you toward your highest potential. With fewer distractions vying for your time and energy, you start noticing patterns, synchronicities, and opportunities that were previously invisible. Life becomes less about reacting and more about sensing where you are being called. In this stillness, your path becomes clearer, your desires become purer, and your direction becomes undeniable. You start recognizing what aligns with your purpose and what pulls you away from it. This awareness gradually shapes your choices, and your choices shape the path unfolding before you. When you become unreachable, you also break free from cycles that once kept you stuck. You stop repeating old patterns simply because they were familiar. You release connections that fed your loneliness but starved your growth. You detach from situations that demanded your presence but never deserved your loyalty. And as you let go of these weights, you rise, slowly, steadily, and intuitively. The elevation creates distance, but that distance is necessary. It sets you apart from energies that once clouded your vision and kept you from stepping into your destiny. In that newfound space, your life begins aligning in a way that feels almost orchestrated. People show up at the right time. Ideas arrive effortlessly. Opportunities feel tailored to who you are becoming. The path that once felt hidden suddenly reveals itself because there is finally room for it to unfold. Becoming unreachable is not isolation, it is preparation. It is the clearing of your inner landscape so your future can finally find you. In the end, becoming unreachable is not about closing your heart. It is about opening your life to what is truly meant to enter it. It is the moment you stop handing your energy to what diminishes you and begin reserving it for what expands you. You rise, not loudly, not aggressively, but quietly and intentionally, into a version of yourself that no longer bends to meet the world at its lowest point. Instead, you invite the world to rise with you, and as you stand in this new space, grounded, clear, and aligned, something remarkable happens. Life begins to respond. The right people recognize your worth. The right opportunities move toward your path, The right experiences find their way into your hands. You stop chasing what was never yours and start receiving what always was. This is the power of becoming unreachable, not isolation but elevation, not distance but direction, not avoidance but awakening. When you choose yourself, you choose the life that was waiting for you all along, and from that moment forward, everything begins to align with the person you were always meant to be.